Hi, everybody. This is Hannah, and I am here to help demystify the process of getting started on your first overpowered monthly challenge adventure. You'll see here on my screen that I've gone to technicalgrimoire.com, where we can find the game, the instructions for the challenge, and the free web app. So I'm going to walk you through that process now so you too can be ready to jump in on the fun. To get to Overpowered from the home page, you can either click the Games section here in the bullets, the Games section here on the side column, or you can scroll down to New Games featured on the homepage and click into Overpowered directly, which is what we're going to do. The Overpowered page, which is also where you should be redirected immediately if you click on any of our promotional posts, has all that you need to get started. So these links here will allow you to download the instructions for the game, while this section here will take you directly to the challenge guidelines. We will click those because we're going to need that, and it will open them up in a new tab. This is the August 2023 rules for the first Overpowered monthly challenge. It is featuring the Moss Mother's Maze by Loot the Room, which you can access online for free. So everything that you need in order to participate here, you can get for free. We have down here the room key, which will help you understand what your obstacles and targets are for this challenge. Basically, this gets rid of all randomness and player interpretation variations so that we can ensure whoever gets the high score was following all the same rules as every other player. Back here on the games page for Overpowered, we're going to scroll back down to Name Your Bot, Launch Web App. This is what's going to get you into the tool that you need in order to play the game. And one more thing of note, if you scroll down to the online scoreboard, this is where you can submit your high score for consideration in the challenge once you're done. Now, back to our web app launcher. If I'm participating in the August challenge, part of the rules say the bot's name has to start with AUG 23, period. And then I can add any bot name of my choice after that. So I will name this bot AUG23 tutorial and launch the web app. So now you see in a new tab, we've got the entire web app interface. This is everything that you need to play Overpowered, and you will be able to just click on these dice and these overpower icons here in order to accomplish most things involved in the game. Additionally, because this is for a monthly challenge, if we scroll down, we can see that tutorial has a glitch and an upgrade. These are covered by the interface, the user interface of this web app, meaning that you will never be able to accidentally spend dice worth multiples of 5, and your d4s will always give a value of 4. You can see here, this d4 that is already built in my starting power is already displaying 4, following that rule. The other part of this section is a description of your bot, an image of your bot, and some tracking icons that indicate how many things you've overcome, scanned, completed, converted, and spent throughout your adventure. just a little bit of flavor to add to your experience. The last thing, which is important for this monthly adventure, is the bottom of the screen has the random roller and the adventure log. The random roller is a way to solve random encounters, determining groups of creatures, or making a roll that isn't going to involve your bot's power or overpower. That means if I roll one of these, it is not going to be calculated into my power or overpower score in the top part of this app. So if I see that a part of the adventure requires 2d6 creatures, I can roll 2d6 and see that there are 10 creatures I am going to have to overcome here. You'll also notice that this doesn't change anything about my overpower, my dice power, or my adventure log. The adventure log is where all of the conversions of power and overpower throughout your game are going to be recorded. It isn't saved, but you will have access to the final version at the end when you complete your adventure by clicking this end button. And that will allow you to copy it to create a legal submission for this challenge so that the judges at the end of it are able to verify that you followed everything in the adventure guidelines according to this room key. Now, how do we get ready to play? All of that is in this top section here. The overpower box, the gain dice box, and the spend overpower box. The overpower box is where your bot's power banks are. These are going to be values displayed on the dice. Looking at my dice, we can see that 3 of them are grayed out. That is because our glitch for this challenge is that the bot cannot spend dice worth multiples of 5. So I cannot click on any of these dice, and they will not be useful to me until they get converted into overpower, which means they have to reach the top of this column. These 3 dice that are in color, I will be able to use to attempt to overcome obstacles throughout the adventure. So right now, we are actually working with 4 plus 2 plus 3 is 9 total power. So let's consider an obstacle. One of the fundamentals of overpower is that you have to choose a stat from any obstacle that you face. And if there is no stat defined, you will use a default value of 10. Another fundamental is that you have to overcome an obstacle by spending more power than the obstacle itself. So if I am overcoming a value of 10, I will have to spend at least 11 power in order to overcome it. Right now, as our dice currently stand, we don't have enough value to beat a default by spending 11 because we cannot use this 10, this 5, or this 5. That means that we are going to have to go to our overpower abilities in this column on the right. I will spend 5 overpower, we start with 50 in case of events like this, to re-roll my dice, so there is more that I can work with. Now you'll see that my power is all accessible to me. All of these dice are in color, and so I am now able to be flexible with what I work with to overcome a challenge. Right now, I have an 11 die that could be used to overcome a default stat. I also have a 16, but you don't want to spend more overpower than you have to, because any dice remaining will be converted to ending your adventure and creating that final score. So to overcome our obstacle with a default value of 10, I will spend this die with 11 power. You'll see it pops up down here that I am about to spend 11 power. If for some reason I did not want to spend this die, or if I had selected it by mistake, I just click it again and it is unselected. You can also select multiple dice by clicking onto them. You'll see when I clicked this 3, the notification came up, you must spend at least 4 power. That is because in Overpowered, you have to ignore all stats that are less than 3 and greater than 30. So you will never be able to spend just a value of 3 on your power dice. So to continue my demonstration, I can select as many dice as I want. I can select every die in my power banks if need be. I don't want to. I just need to have the ability to overcome my obstacle. So with the 4-4-3-1 here, I could also overcome this obstacle with a value of 10. But I am going to use fewer dice, and I'm going to use only the die with the power of 11. Now you'll see that that has disappeared from my power banks, and if we scroll down to the adventure log, you can see that it tracked my spending overpower to reroll and the power that I spent to overcome the obstacle. Moving back up, because I overcame an obstacle, I will click the D4. Remember, my upgrade is that all D4s will roll a 4, so this is going to be a value of 4 no matter what during the tutorial challenge. Let's talk about the other dice in the gain dice section. So as I've just explained, you always get a D4 for overcoming any obstacle, but you can gain other dice for accomplishing other objectives. The D6 is related to types of valuables. That means if I find a bag of gold, a diamond, an art piece, anything like that, I will gain a D6 after I have overcome all obstacles in the room. For the D8, a unique feature. This means that there is something in the room that is unlike anything else in the dungeon. It is singular. It is something that you probably could not move. It might be valuable, it might not be, but you won't see anything like it again throughout your adventure. The 20 is a named creature. That is anything in an adventure that is given a name. This could be Ned the NPC, this could be the pet snail named Shelley, and this could be the tyrannical overlord of Garst. Anything like that, with a title that suits as a proper name, you can gain a d20 for scanning. Skipping over the 12 for a moment, if we check the d10, it is for a powerful object. That is when you scan an item that contains power. This could be magic, it could be technology, it could be spiritism. Anything that is considered suitably powerful that does more than just a basic item could do without enhancements will earn you a d10. So the d6, the d8, the d20, and the d10 all are related to scanning things, and all can only be rolled and gained after you've overcome every obstacle in a room. Lastly, the d12 is for completing an area. In the hypothetical scenario that I was just talking about, we overcame an obstacle with a default value of 10, and there was nothing about it that was valuable, and there was no other feature that I talked about being in the room. So We got the D4 for overcoming the obstacle, but now we get a D12 because we have completed the area that obstacle was in. Unfortunately, we've rolled a 10 on that one, which means that it doesn't change the accessible power to us, but that is a very compelling value for if we can get it up into our overpower values. One important remaining thing to note, if you accidentally gain a die that you shouldn't have, spend power that you didn't mean to, you can undo your last action using this button. Now that we understand when to gain dice and when to spend dice, let's talk about spending overpower. The spending overpower, as I demonstrated at the start, can be used to get you out of difficult situations. Overpower starts out with a value of 50, that is, borrowed from your bot's creators, and it needs to be paid back at the end of your adventure. So if you do not have 50 overpower in your bank, you cannot end your adventure. That means that this bot will have to explore further and scan more things before it is able to say mission complete. Also, since it is created for the monthly challenge, it has to complete the challenge objective of scanning everything in room V of the Moss Mother's maze. But to elaborate on the overpower capabilities, 5 overpower will let you reroll dice. We have seen that already. 20 overpower will let you overcome an obstacle. This can be very useful if you are facing an obstacle with a high stat. Any obstacle that has a stat value from 21 to 30, you might want to consider using this ability to overcome. The downside is you will have to gain back that overpower by exploring more, and you are able to choose a different direction if you would rather not deal with a certain obstacle and avoid the extra overpower expense entirely. You can spend 40 overpower to gain one of every type of die. This automatically gives you more power to work with, although it is still randomly determined by what the dice will roll. So there is no guarantee that you are going to get better values, higher values, etc. However, it could boost some of your dice into overpower and gain you back some values. And it could be enough that you can overcome exceptionally challenging obstacles without having to spend extra overpower to do so. Keep in mind this is twice the value of overcoming one obstacle, but not every room has only one obstacle you have to overcome. So it can be a better option in the long run. Teleport to any area is the most expensive of the overpowered abilities, and that is because it is very strong and can frame an entire run. You can choose at any point if you get into a position on the map where it's no longer viable for your bot to navigate, to jump to any other room on that map without having to move through any other intermediary rooms, overcome any obstacles therein, and so on. This will spend the entirety of your overpower reserve from the start, which means you will have to gain it all back before you conclude your adventure. However, it can let you start your adventure from a position that is better suited to gaining the highest value possible on your run. It is definitely a feature that benefits from multiple playthroughs. Lastly, there is a button to end your adventure, and it indicates what your final score will be. This is calculated by converting all of your power dice into overpower, subtracting the 50 overpower that you owe from the start of the adventure, and then multiplying that value by 100 to create a more effective simulation of numbers you might see on a high scoreboard. I cannot legally end my adventure right now because my overpower is less than my debt due to that reroll. So we'll just have to proceed further into the adventure before tutorial is able to finish their work. I'd like to demonstrate one more thing about the conversion of power to overpower. To demonstrate this final element, I'm going to use the adventure. One of the creatures in the adventure for this monthly challenge is called a clacker. They are silver spiders the size of fists, their legs hinged blades. The intricate clockwork that fuels them is enchanted so that it can run forever. They contain 100 silver pieces of silver each, but would be worth more to a collector if extracted while still functional. If they fail morale in combat, they flee back to their lair in 12. What is important to us is that there are numbers associated with these creatures. Specifically, they have a hit die of 2, an AC of 6, and deal 1d3 damage. That means that we have the numbers 2, 6, and 3 to work with when it comes to stats that we can overcome. 2, you'll remember from what we discussed before, is too small. We ignore all stats less than 3. But there is 1d3 damage, which we assume to be 3, because any range we will use the maximum value for in Overpowered. Armed with that information, let's assume that our room has 2 clackers in it. They are each obstacles, and we are giving them the stat value of 3 to overcome. That means we will need at least 4 power to overcome each one. I have a D8 here with a value of 4 that I will spend now to overcome a clacker. Since I've overcome one obstacle, I immediately gain a D4. Note that I am not scanning it as a valuable yet because I haven't overcome both obstacles. There's still another clacker in the room that needs to be dealt with before I get any other dice. Fortunately, that clacker has a stat of 3, and so I can spend this 3 and 1 to have 4 power and overcome the other clacker. With that overcoming of an obstacle, I click a D4 again. Now you'll see that this column has changed. One of my D4s has disappeared and has gone up here into the overpower value, which is now at 49. It used to be at 45 because I spent that 5 overpower to re-roll the dice. So now you understand how the conversion of power to overpower works. A die needs to get to the top of the column in a single power bank before it gets into the overpower values. Now let's get the rest of our rewards. The clackers are worth 100 silver pieces if they are dysfunctional, and there are 2 of them. But they're the same type of valuable, so we only get 1d6. Then we complete the area because we have overcome both clackers, we have scanned their valuable bodies, and now the room is complete. With that, you've seen all the basic functionalities of this web app, and you should be well equipped to go on your own overpowered adventure. Remember, at the conclusion, click this button to end your adventure and generate your final adventure log. You will be able to highlight this and copy it so that you can submit it to our team and we are able to review it to ensure that you have followed all the rules correctly to be considered as our top scorer. We hope that you have fun, and we really hope that you will check out the whole set of rules for Overpowered on your own and see what sort of high scores you can attain in all sorts of adventures. We hope you have fun.